the untold story of the mysterious 7th Cavalry eyewitness account that reveals the harrowing tale of Custer's last stand. Sergeant Martin was a unique individual, one of the few surviving soldiers who witnessed the infamous Battle of Little Bighorn, also known as Custer's last stand. His eyewitness account provides a first-hand perspective on one of the most pivotal moments in American history. And today, we're going to explore the shocking details he revealed. Before we continue, please like and subscribe to our channel to support our community. Sergeant John Martin was a USA retired scout of the 7th Cavalry Regiment, a veteran of numerous Indian battles, one of the few survivors of the Battle of Little Bighorn, lives in a modest home near historic Fort Henry. Originally from Italy, whose real name is Martini, dedicated 30 years of continuous service in military before his recent retirement. The Battle of Little Bighorn on June 25, 1876, is one of the most infamous battles in American history, a clash between the United States Army's 7th Cavalry Regiment and a combined force of the Lakota, Cheyenne, and Arapaho tribes. Sergeant Martin's account is particularly significant because he was one of the few survivors of the battle and had a unique perspective on the events that unfolded. When we received orders for an expedition against the Sioux, led by Sitting Bull, I served as a trumpeter in Troop H, 7th Cavalry, stationed at Fort Rice in the Black Hills. Our detachment, the 7th Cavalry, set out for the valley on the evening of June 24th. After a hard march, we set up camp and got ready to rest. We were abruptly ordered to break camp and continue marching until daybreak, however, after reporting the discovery of a large Indian village. General Custer called a meeting with his officers, and it was decided to split our detachment into 3 battalions. The battalion we were following grew progressively fresher, and on the morning of the 26th, 1 or 4 scouts, led by Major Reno, would command one, moving swiftly forward to engage the Indians who were thought to be fleeing. Custer would support him with his battalion, while Captain Benteen led his guard to deal with any escaping Indians. Our 3 battalions left on a bright morning, unaware of the obvious death trap that only women, children, and dogs could see. He called in his officers for another meeting and vanished from view. After traveling roughly 3 miles, we came across numerous dead buffaloes strewn across the plains, suggesting that the Indians had not yet returned from waiting for us. For unknown reasons, Major turned to the Little Bighorn and began their hunt. Custer climbed a high knoll and observed the Indian village in the valley. Then the warriors addressed the men, assuring us that this would be an easy endeavor before heading home. Custer called for a messenger, and an infantryman stepped forward. Custer asked about his troop, to which the trooper replied, "No, you won't do?" H. Custer said, "You are the man I want," and he confirmed, "Take this message to Reno and Benteen." Lastly, Custer pointed at me and said, "I want that man." When he asked about my troop, I replied, "Return without danger, report tome." If you encounter Indians, stay with Reno and deliver the report with him. The message, which was written and signed by Custer's assistant, read as follows: "Big village, come on, be quick, bring packs cook." Custer's forces had just entered the area when a group of yelling Indians attacked his small band, brandishing their swords. Eventually, the order to dismount was given, and while 1 detachment guarded the brandishing fresh buffalo skins and antelope hides, agitating the horses to the point of frenzied, the rest fought valiantly against the Indians. But the Indians attacked the troops in charge of the horses, which resulted in chaos and a stampede. Despite the threat of retreat, the men fought and were determined to defend themselves until they were on Custer. We went to capture Major Reno, who was in a very agitated state. I went to Captain Benteen first, giving him a stern message and alerting him to the attack, and he systematically picked them off until the very last soldier was killed. At the end, the troops formed a square formation and were surrounded by Indians who were distraught. "My God, Benteen," he exclaimed, "half my command has been killed." Benteen urged us to move quickly toward Custer, but Reno thought it would be wiser for the two battalions to move forward together. As a result, we spent about 5 minutes together as Reno regrouped his decided Custer's contingent, and they were now headed straight for us. The massacre had been sacred. The Indians who had defeated Reno had joined forces with those who had battered a battalion, gathering the wounded. Ultimately, we moved as quickly as we could, but regrettably, when we arrived at the location, we found that Custer's center command had been taken between 12 and 1 o'clock, and it was now around 3. The gunfire continued unabated until it momentarily stopped, and we tried to flee in a close-knit square with the wounded positioned in it. By that time, Generals Terry and Gibbons had given us a lot of the center, bracing ourselves for a fierce battle, and we were given that. For hours from 4 until 7 o'clock, relentless exchange of fire ensued on both sides. It was not too soon. He lay between 2 dead gray horses, his head resting against the body of one of the fallen soldiers. In the grim aftermath, I clearly remember coming across General Animals. Together, we traveled to the scene of the massacre where we encountered the dead bodies, one through his Iska stand, another in his left temple, Custer's remains. His clothing had been torn apart, and he bore 2 grievous bullet wounds. As the battle commenced, Martin found himself in the midst of chaos, with bullets flying in every direction and the sounds of screams and gunfire filling the air. He describes the Native American warriors as fierce and determined, fighting with a ferocity that caught the U.S. Army off guard. Martin also witnessed the collapse of Custer's command structure, with officers and men fleeing in panic as the battle raged on. Sergeant Martins departed from Fort Lincoln with Custer's 7th Cavalry Regiment. He describes the mood among the soldiers as tense and anxious, with many knowing that they were heading into hostile territory. Martin himself was assigned to scout ahead and gather intelligence on the Native American forces, a job that put him in a unique position to observe the events of the battle, when the survivors were left to tend to the wounded and bury the dead. Martin recounts how the Native American warriors treated the U.S. Army soldiers with a degree of respect and dignity, even in the midst of victory. Custer and most of his men were killed, leaving behind only a few scattered survivors to tell the tale. Thanks for joining me on this journey into the untold stories of General Custer's 7th Cavalry Soldiers' eyewitness account. If you've got thoughts on the soldiers' testimonies, share them with me in the comments below. And if you want to explore more historical insights and stories, be sure to subscribe for more content.